Hello and welcome to the Wisden Cricket Weekly Podcast. This summer, Wisden are proudly sponsored by Kia UK. Kia are leading the way in electrification with their groundbreaking range of EVs, including the EV9, EV6 and the UK Car of the Year, the EV3. Kia also have a commitment to movement that inspires and want to help cricket fans get closer to the action. Listen every week for Kia's Movement That Inspires moment for chances to win exciting experiences at the Kia Oval this summer. England go 2-1 up at Lord's after a nerve-wracking final day. Ravi Jadeja batted for more than 4 hours on day 5 to keep India just about in the hunt. But in the end, England's 2 new ball bursts, first last night and then first thing this morning, were enough to see them home. I'm Yas Rana, and with me today are Mark Butcher and Phil Walker. Butch, an utterly enthralling final day. It's very rare that a team approaches that sort of scenario in the way India did. A frontline batter with 2 genuine tail-enders looking to crawl rather than sprint to victory, and India very nearly pulled it off.
They very nearly did, yeah. I mean, here it was a test match throughout which the conditions entirely dictated the way that the game was played. And instead of having a template for the way that you want to play a game and just sort of pasting it on top of whatever the conditions are, England in particular, but both teams played it in the way that the conditions dictated. So in the end, India's sort of crawl to the total was basically because if you tried to do anything other than keep out the good ones and try to knock away the bad ones, you were going to get out, or the ball was so soft that you couldn't hit it anyway, making or rendering the idea of sort of sprinting to the finish completely impossible. That was at the beginning, the first 3 days of the Test match were played at sort of funereal pace for similar reasons, really. Although the threat of getting out wasn't there in the same way in the first 3 days, but the difficulty in kind of just making the scoreboard inch forward was there for all to see from both teams. And it was awesome that England, in their first innings, sort of played the way that they did, realising that, hey, we're playing against a good team here. We can't just sort of bully the conditions to submit to whatever we want them to do. We're just going to have to go out there and eke out the amount of runs that we're going to need to keep us in and then eventually win the Test match. So it was pretty damn good. The first 3 days were a tough watch, but in the end, it was worth it.
Phil, you spent a lot of today in the stand soaking in the atmosphere. The atmosphere at Lord's today was very special. 25 quid to come in. Sell out last night, actually. It was sold out before we got to this morning. And a very, very special finish. England's third closest victory by runs this century. Edgbaston 05, Trent Bridge 2013 ahead of it. And England 2-1 up now.
Yeah, I heard Andy Zaltzman's stat, 5th narrowest win at home in England's Test history. They're making a habit of it, aren't they? Of getting over the line, especially at home. There's been so many now. It doesn't happen by accident. It happens for a number of reasons, and one being the extraordinary willpower and central energy that emits from the skipper. The reason why I watched it outside the press box, and this sounds really dismissive of the immense privilege that we get to go into that Norman Foster award-winning media centre. I just find it quite a sterile atmosphere. Not due to the people.
I was sitting next to you, Phil.
You can't get a proper. They pipe in the sound, and you can't get a proper sense of it. And I thought today of all days, go down and see what it was like really among the real people. And there's something magical about day 5s, right? Because there's a lot of people who maybe they don't prioritise the Lord's Test. They don't go to meet old friends and old, private school alumni and all the rest of it. They go because they're desperate to see the game itself. There was hardly anyone really knocking the booze back. It was a different vibe. Even the sound was different. It sounded the tenor of it sounded like Champions Trophy final. Oval 20 whatever it was 17 18 India Pakistan. That's what it sounded like. It sounded like 2017 World Cup women's final. It sounded different to what the normal sound that you get at Lords. And what was fascinating, sitting amongst the punters, was that when we rolled into that afternoon session after lunch, and India were 8 down. Yeah, they were 8 down. And you look at it on paper, echoes of Edgbaston 20 years ago, and you think, well, the game's done. It's 2 balls away, a couple of tail enders, Stokes got his tail up, etc., etc. And yet there was no drop in the mood whatsoever among the fans, among the Indian fans. They were as committed and as buoyant to the bit as they would have been if it was 8 wickets in hand and 20 needed. It was really a privilege to sit amongst it and to get that sense of what it means, what it means in the end. We can get a bit complacent sometimes, and here's another game coming around the corner, and who should bat 6 or whatever. You forget how much it really is ingrained in people, and you've got that sense today, probably more than any of the other days of the Test match.
Butch, England are 2-1 up now, and they've got their 2 wins by chasing 370 and defending 190. I thought at the end of the England second innings, India were overwhelming favourites. You did not think that. Why did you think, going into this final innings, in such a high-scoring series so far, that England were favourites going into the final innings?
Because I'd watched what the new ball had done the previous day. You mentioned, I mentioned that the first 3 days, the pitch had kind of defeated and deflated everybody's efforts to try and entertain. It was just a grind. But then suddenly on day 4, you just saw the ball doing all sorts, bouncing, staying low, nipping back, length being very difficult to sort of defend or to judge whether or not you were defending your stumps or whether it was going to rattle into them halfway up or whether your glove was going to get ripped off. And I just felt that, what the great thing about this is? We've had 5 days of Test match cricket where it's been hot, right? You add heat into the mix with a dry pitch in the first place, or slow dry pitch in the first place, and then you get what you get, which is the scores go that way as the Test match goes on. An uneven bounce comes into play, and every run becomes absolute gold dust. And so I was watching it on the evening of day 4, and I just thought, mate, they're not getting those. And okay, they got damn close, but with 4 sort of top frontline seamers, with Archer back in his extra pace, Cast with his height, he bowled magnificently, by the way. Stokes has been brilliant all the way through, and then Wokes, given a sort of surface where you couldn't actually kind of run at him and start smashing him all over the place, then being metronomic and hitting the top of off stump, thinking that's awesome. And then you also got a spinner who it turns out couldn't bowl because he busted his finger. The 190 might as well have been 360. So I just felt that we were winning that game, and thankfully in the end I was right. And I have text message evidence to prove it as well.
You were very, very quick. You were very, very quick to send that text message evidence at the end of the game.
Because you went really?
Phil, there were 2 centurions in this game. Bumrah took a first innings 5 for Washington. Sundar took 4 for 22 in the second innings. Ben Stokes was player of the match, but it's Jofra Archer's return that will live longest in the memory. A couple of really special moments. That passage of play that started with him handing his cap to the umpire for his first over, then dismissing Jaiswal 3 balls later, back in the side for the first time in 4.5 years, and then dismissing Rishabh Pant with the ball of the game. It's just an extraordinary story on a human level, but to see him back bowling that well and that quickly is amazing as a story, but also transformative for this England team.
It's feathering the cap, right, for the management, the way that they have dealt with him over the last year and a half. We can quibble about how he was managed in his first iteration as a Test match bowler, but since the shoots of recovery physically, they have managed him, I think, really well. It's still the reality was still, though, that he was coming into this game with 18 red ball overs in 4.5 years. But such is the wonder of fast bowling that you can come in back into that side with that amount of bowling, no kind of bowling under your belt at all, and as you say, be transformative in a week. So we've gone from tentatively hoping that he gets through the game to, the main man is back. And we have to be careful of not running too far with it, because he does continue to have to be managed, of course. But my God, what a joy, as you say, on a human level. We felt like we've been kind of walking with him across a marble floor very, very delicately for the last couple of years. But to see him just relax into his body, relax into his mind again, and to see the joy just emanate off him. But that's all
and a fire as well. I mean, there was a couple of occasions where he properly went at a couple of Indian batters. I mean, that was because there was a little bit of something that kind of you wondered whether or not he sort of, whether it was a bit of a shrug idea from him as to whether he was going to play or whether he wasn't. But when you see him sort of as engaged as he was there, sending batters off and having to be restrained by Stokes and stuff, and saying, you think, wow, the whole thing is back. He did say that his every over was still going to be documented between now and December. Mind, he's still not completely out of the woods. But yeah, sorry to interrupt.
No. We should be talking over one another. Zoom, and it's tricky on the Zooms. But anyway, that delivery, I said it to you, Yaz, after he bowled it to Rishabh. I think that's the best delivery he's ever bowled in Test cricket. There was the Warner one in the Old Trafford Test match after the Lord's game in 2019, where he similar kind of delivery round the wicket, turned him inside out, nicked him off. But that ball, that is a classic. It's a very modern ball as well, isn't it? Get it to stand up against the angle and so on. But he doesn't get appreciable movement necessarily. Historically, what he is fucking fast and accurate. But to get that one going with a ball that was 25 overs old, that is a perler. And that is a real sign that he's not just back as part of the cohort. And isn't it lovely that he's played another game of the big stuff? But no, that is a signifier that he might yet have a profound effect on this era. And none of us could have said that with any confidence at all. And probably deep down, he couldn't have said it either himself, even just a year and a half ago, right? So it's a beautiful story. It couldn't have worked out any better. And he's back, and he's the quickest bowler on show. That's the other thing,
Comfortably. Yeah. There was a great bit, actually, and this, I know we'll probably move on to Stokes anyway, but he bowled what, 4 overs of not very good stuff on the night of the fourth evening. Obviously, you're only defending 190. All of the talk would have been about the length you need to bowl on the pitch because of the unevenness and the bounce and whatever. And he got the plum end, obviously bowling at the nursery end, but that's not his end. He doesn't. And he ran in and bowled a load of half volleys that KL Rahul kept stroking to the boundary, and he asked for a sweeper, and Stokes just went, you ain't having it, because that's not the length you're supposed to be bowling. And then he dragged him, right? So 4 overs, and we didn't see him again on that fourth evening. And then you're kind of thinking to yourself, okay, well, so what happens tomorrow? What does he do with him tomorrow? What does he do? He goes, here, have your end. You start us off. And he delivers with just the spell that kind of won us the game, really, even though it was protracted after that. But so it was a very, very good piece of captaincy. It was exactly the right thing to do. Take him off, let him stew for a little while. I'm not going to give him the cover he wants. That ain't what we want you to do. But then in the morning, go here. You're still the man. Show me that I was wrong last night, and bang, there it goes.
And a great record against left-handers, right? A considerably better record in Test cricket against lefties than right-handers, and that natural angle that he has, it just suits, as Mark says, it suits the pavilion end perfectly. And that over to Rishabh Pant for theatre and drama and a bit of needle and all the rest of it. That will live on, right? That will live on. Well, how do you play a modern on drive? You run down the wicket, take your bottom hand off, and just let the top hand flow through it. It goes all along the floor, through mid on for 4. Next delivery cleans him up. Extraordinary stuff.
Pant was the guy that everyone was worried about last night. So even though they're 4 down, with a couple of the big boys gone, with Pant's the one everyone was worried about. England would have been having sleepless nights about him last night. The fans were all worried about Pant. You smash his stumps over early doors, and that's as much of a statement as you need to make, isn't it?
Obviously, people get very excited by the speeds, and at one point in the first innings, I think it was in his third or fourth spell, he bowled his fastest over in Test cricket, improving on the speeds that he bowled against Steve Smith 6 years ago. And also today, by the way, recording this a few hours after it's all done, the 6th-year anniversary of the World Cup final at Lord's, Archer and Stokes. Stokes player of the match once again, and very special. And I think, although we focus and fixate on the speed with Archer, especially because we're trying to compare him now to what he was pre-injury, I thought his skill was just on show and evident really early on. He is an immensely skillful bowler. Even if he bowled 5 mph slower, he possesses skill. The way he was able to, I think him getting Jaiswal out early in both innings was huge. Especially, but you said Pant was one of the danger men in the run chase. I think Jaiswal as a bit of a dasher up top, someone who could easily hit 50 runs in an hour himself. Be able to get him out twice early on when England have looked a little bit tame with the new ball at times this series was as important as anything.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I also think that Jaiswal wasn't particularly happy. That the ball that he got out to in the second innings would be something that he'd naturally stand and look to cut. I think he was rattled by Archer in both innings, actually. I mean, not unsurprising, the delivery that he got first innings. Everyone's nicking that, I'm afraid. But there was a certain lack of any sort of certainty facing Archer in the second innings, and that's one to keep an eye on. We don't know if he'll be back it up. I know there's quite a good long stretch now between now and Old Trafford, which gives him a damn good chance. And if you're England, you're kind of thinking, well, if we can get him to go at Old Trafford, then we might have the series won before we need to worry about the Oval type thing. So, that's always a possibility. But I'm not sure that Jaiswal was particularly comfortable.
Phil, Butch talked about conditions earlier on. We got a question from Alex on the Discord who asks, could Jadeja have been more attacking today, or did the dimensions of the boundaries combined with the soft ball and tight bowling make it too hard? How do you think they played it today? Monastic levels of patience from Jadeja, utterly focused on what he was trying to do, didn't at any point really deter from it. Maybe that 6 off Wokes, the ball after he was given LBW and just about survived on review. That aside, he stuck to his game and nearly pulled off a miracle.
Well, I thought it was mesmerising, right? But I wasn't listening to anything and I was watching it on my own. So could I throw the question back to you? You being in the press box, talking around, probably having an earpiece in, reading stuff on the Twitters and whatnot. What was your impression of his approach?
I sort of what Butch said earlier on. I didn't think it was that easy to score. I think England's run rate across the game wasn't a tactical decision. It was a tactical decision, I suppose, to respond to conditions being different. But both sides found it difficult to score quickly. And the other side is that going into this innings, England had only taken 3 wickets with seam between overs 40 and 80 all series. And even today, they only get 1, and that's when Bumrah couldn't resist a hook shot against Stokes. And it's actually very well caught by Sam Cook, who's on the field for almost the entirety of the final day. It was just very, very difficult to score. And I actually think another really massive moment was Wokes getting ready out just before the lunch break, because we saw how difficult it was for England to create wicket-taking opportunities after the lunch break. And had India had 2 established batters in there, they could easily have got home well before the tea break. So, I don't think we had a choice, basically.
Yeah, I agree with you entirely, really. The ready moment was critical. As soon as Jadeja came out, he fancied it. He's a proper scrapper. He's a street fighter, and he's an all-time great cricketer, really. And he loves playing England, in England in particular. He loves getting under the bonnet and all the rest of it. He looked entirely at ease with the aggro swirling around the place all day long. And he was winning that game. Reddy got, a dozen? Maybe 14? Bumrah got 5 or 4, whacked one up in the air, and Siraj probably got 3 or 4. I don't know. no one, and Washington Sundar, who came in after him, was gone in a minute. So he had to do it all on his own, and they were 4 and a bit boundaries away from winning it, or 5 and a bit boundaries away from winning it. He was winning that game on his own terms, as a kind of chokehold. Really, it was remarkable to watch, and the second new ball started to become a factor. That's how remarkable it was.
Well, I mean, he might actually have thought, you know what, wouldn't it be great to get the second new ball, because then I'm 3 slashes away from winning us the game type thing, because that would have gone to the boundary. I mean, the interesting thing really was once you make the decision as a fielding captain that you're going to bowl at, you could try and bowl at the other guy, you're going to get 4 balls at the batter and 2 balls at the tail ender. Once you start doing that, it becomes very difficult to stop, which is why I would rather not start it until you get to a point where it becomes absolutely necessary, because I still think that if Jadeja had the option with a few more fielders up, whether it was against seam or against spin, to actually have a dip and have a go, that you stood a better chance of getting him out, because any attacking shot was so fraught with danger. You have short, wide deliveries that one would fly and one would just scuttle along the ground. You drag one on from anywhere. It was just so difficult to play any sort of, even half volleys in the end were kind of like difficult to hit with any conviction. But as I said, once you've decided to go down that road, then it becomes very difficult to stop it, particularly as the target starts to creep further and further closer. And then you have no choice. You've got to stick with it.
Yeah.
But I don't think he could have played it any other way. He needed somebody who was competent at the other end, competent enough for England to try and get out in the same way as they were going to try and get him out. And then he might have been able to marshal it slightly better. But knowing that he had basically had to protect both Bumrah and Siraj right to the very end, he didn't have any choice.
There were some extraordinary fields set for him. One that stands out is when Bashir was bowling at him at the end of an over. All 9 England fielders were within about 15 yards of Jadeja. Stokes was really encouraging him. Like, go on, you can miss-hit this and you're probably still safe. But even then, he didn't feel like it was safe enough to play an attacking shot. No. We should talk about the very end of the game. Butch, just the theatre of it was amazing. Shoaib Bashir, who we now know won't play any further part in the series due to that broken finger on his left hand, played a bit part role in this game, picked up a really important wicket of KL Rahul just after he got to 3 figures in the first innings, but hardly used at all in the 4th innings because of that broken finger on his left hand. And he bowls maybe the slowest ball he bowled in the game. Siraj defends it in front of him, it bounces in front of him, and then it very slowly spins around his left foot. And there's a brilliant photo of the England players looking at the ball hit the stumps. They don't celebrate because at that speed, the bail could conceivably not have come off. So an amazing finish.
No, it was fabulous, wasn't it? I mean, I'm very much from the school, the old school of captaincy, whereby as soon as if I see tail enders in and you quick 7 knocked them over in 4 or 5 overs, throw the ball to a spinner, because it just, particularly last day, and they tend to defend the ball in the same way, to the same line, no matter where the ball is, and you can throw it up a bit, or they might slog one up in the air. The whole gamut of dismissals becomes available to you when the tail is in against spin, especially when all they're thinking about is defending, because they're not very good at it, right? Unfortunately for him, he played it quite well. It really kicked on him, didn't it? Very slow delivery, really bounced, and he just played it so softly. And unfortunately, the ball still had plenty of overspin on it and revved past his foot. But
there's an excellent. So just on that, Butch, there's an excellent video that someone's done on Twitter where they've dubbed John Virgo's snooker commentary over the ball, going, "Where's the red ball going? Where's the red ball going?"
I mean, it's just, Thing is, I've got to tell you, I didn't, in the same way that you got incredibly nervous maybe watching the Super Over or Stokes' innings in 2019. It never got to that point for me watching it. I mean, I wasn't in the ground, so I was watching it on the TV, but I just I could not see how that there wasn't going to be a chance or a wicket falling before they'd made 25 runs. It just seemed inconceivable that chance wouldn't eventually come. And as much as it was a fabulous, great relief, the game had been won 3 hours before that by England. It was just, perhaps it was a shame for them and their reserves of energy and the pain that Stokes and co would have had to have suffered, that they had to go through the 3 more hours before they got it done, 3.5 more hours before they got it done. But it was an epic game, proper Test match.
Feel like a lot of England victories under Stokes, I look back at the game and sort of think, how did England actually win it? Because there are points at which India looked very comfortable. And I think one of the moments, maybe the moment, was Stokes' run out of Rishabh Pant on the stroke of lunch on, I think, the third day, where it looked like England weren't really creating anything. It was very, very flat. And it was just an epic individual performance from Stokes all round. Named man of the match at the end, 70-odd runs, but gritted runs. He never really found any fluency, but still was able to contribute with the bat in both innings. And then 5 wickets in total, including that wicket of the final ball of day 4, Akash Deep. And then a Herculean effort with the ball on the final day. He bowled unbroken from the nursery end from 11 a.m. to 12:40. An extraordinary performance from the England captain.
Yeah, and then bowled for most of the afternoon as well. 20 overs in a day. Batted with bloody mindedness, no real rhythm, but just sheer cussedness, refusing to buckle. And those runs in a crabby kind of game, really, for the bat, were very useful. The run out was essential because Pant was starting to dominate. India were cruising, really, at that point. I mean, it wasn't an easy track to score on at any point, but the game was definitely bending to them. And knowing how England were going to go in that third innings, any kind of lead of 50-odd, and I think India would have been real strong favourites. It's like he can bend a whole game to his ego and his will and his charisma. It's remarkable to watch. And Joe Root used a good word tonight in his interview. He says it's how he manages the game that is so incredible. And watching it without, just on my own terms, as I say, couldn't get any signal on my phone either, right? So I wasn't reading anything, just watching it. How he was able to deliver his own 6 deliveries while moving the field ball by ball, and then to work out in the split second who should be bowling at the other end and what fields they should be having. Often it gets chaotic, or often, if you are a bowling captain, which is rare, obviously, but you do get all-round captains, then the vice-captain becomes quite a big player, or the keeper becomes quite a big player. But that doesn't happen with Stokes. Stokes does the whole thing from top to bottom. It's remarkable. He's kind of like a CEO and a shop steward and a foreman and a kid on work experience all at once. It's amazing. It's amazing to watch him do it. Yeah, he'd like to have finished it just after lunch and get his feet up, but he's also, he's not unaware of himself. And as he said at the end, he said, I do have form in these situations. Look, he might not bowl quite as much at Old Trafford, but give him 20 overs today and that kind of Herculean vibe that he likes to play out, I don't think it could have worked out better for him. I love the fact that he dragged on and on and on, and he said, if we need to get it done, then look, I'm going to have to be the bloke to do it. It was remarkable to see, and I think it taps in as well to this idea that it's now for him, isn't it? It's this referendum on his era, this era that he's dominated and bestrutted. Yeah. The referendum is right now, and every game matters now. Every day matters. Because we are trying to work out where his legacy is positioned. We know he's in the top 3 or 4 greatest cricketers that England have produced, but is he also going to be, fucking hell, the greatest captain as well? I mean, this is what's at stake for him, and he's far too smart to be unaware of that. So again, what we've seen today is not just a great cricketer, but an extraordinary leader, really.
Just on him doing everything. I don't know if this was picked up by the TV cameras, but when he was bowling his last spell, he was also fielding short leg when Bashir was bowling at the same time. Extraordinary. I don't think a captain would have ever done that, ever, fielding at short leg whilst they were bowling themselves.
No, it was quite something. I mean, and you're right, actually. I hadn't even considered that, Phil. But generally speaking, in those situations, as the game sort of gets closer and closer, last wicket partnership, you've got fielders and people running from everywhere, giving their two penneth worth, and there were arms waving all over the place, and conflabs and whatever. Weren't any. He'd finish his over, he'd wander off to where he had to go, wave his own arms around, and everybody else would do what they were told. There just wasn't any of that. People rushing from side to side and people making suggestions and whatever. And what's more, everybody else was more than happy with it. It wasn't as though people thought that they were being ignored and they had things that were wiser and better or suggestions that needed to be heard. They were like, no, this is what we're doing. We're happy. We'll get it done. Don't worry. And that's how it played out.
Finally, in part one, Phil, when India reflect in this game in 2 or 3 days' time, what would they feel like they could have done differently?
It's a game of real tiny moments. If Stokes misses the stumps on that run out, then Pant probably gets 100. If Karen Nair doesn't leave one with 20 minutes to go, and I know Mark is right that it probably shifted to England needing 200 to win on a pitch really hard to score on, but still they were 48 for 1 with 25 minutes to go. And he batted really nicely. He's a really good player. Leaves a straight one from Brydon Cast. And then Shubman Gill is in. Now, if Shubman Gill had come in this morning, the result still may have been the same possibly, but there's a damn better chance that India get that game done if they get to the close last night, just the one down. Kind of an inexplicable moment, really. And suddenly that opens up the doors and they're 4 down. It's these little kinds of details, really. They are... Somebody, I guess, had to be 2-1 down because draws, they're finished, apparently. But India are not a 2-1 down side. It's been this is one of these series where it could be 3-0 to India. And that would not be on the balance of the games themselves, if you look at them on their own terms, and that wouldn't have been an unfair shout. There was a sense that India probably edged Leeds, and there's a definite sense that they probably edged this one as well. And yet there you go. I don't know. There could be perhaps 1 or 2 areas that they can look at regarding their backup seamer, perhaps. With Reddy, what is he offering? But then he picked up a couple on the first morning. Washington Sundar is a bit of this and a bit of that, and perhaps not that much of a hole, and yet he picked up 4 for 20. So they probably picked just on the right side, probably.
The balance of that side will work fine at Old Trafford.
Yeah,
absolutely fine.
Probably nothing really.
Yeah, it's a difficult one, isn't it? I mean, the interesting thing again. India, Shubman Gill sort of went to his inner Virat Kohli and kind of went a bit bonkers on that second evening. Was it second evening?
Third evening.
No, third evening. About the time wasting and everything, which is pretty rich given what we've seen over the course of the first two test matches in 2 days up to that point from players on both sides, but particularly from Indian batters. And kind of, I don't know, he sort of jumped out of his usual sort of calm demeanor there a little bit. And I don't know whether or not, because everything that happened from that point onwards, actually, the game was completely different from that point onwards. There was narc, there was niggle, there was naked aggression, and yes, the pitch changed too. So that that accelerated the course of it. But I wonder if somebody who is so serene and so sort of implacable in terms of his batsmanship needs to be in that sort of headspace in order to be as good a player as he can be. And it would be very interesting to see what happens when we go to Old Trafford as to whether that continues or whether things go back a little bit to the way that they had been in the first 2 games. Because I reckon you have to be an incredibly special captain, leader, batsman, as Kohli was, to be able to play with that kind of fire and that kind of thing going on, as well as looking after all the other things you have to look after. And I'm not sure he's that guy. I don't think that's him. It was Virat, but I'm not sure it's him. So we'll see.
Yeah, I think that's a good shout, actually. And Archer alluded to England's, front foot ultra aggressive attitude at the end of the game and said, well, we feel as a team, and this is what they were saying in the dressing room, that they've been too nice when they've gone away from home, in particular, this England side. And with the needle and the narc that came into the game, that definitely gave them an edge as well. Now, it may not have flowed from Shubman Gill. It may have flowed arguably from England, but it contributed to a kind of freneticism, I think, in that final session on day 4. And it definitely flowed into what we saw this morning as well. And when you have the ball, and when it's a very tricky pitch to score runs on, and you got the home advantage and all the rest of it, that you'd rather be in that position, I think, because you can kind of control the tempo.
Yeah, it's 11 on 2 in the last innings of the game. But I, and either side can find themselves in that position. The thing that I'll be keeping an eye on is Gill. Is Gill, because he was the one that kind of got in Crawley's face. Zach told him to wind his neck in so many words. And before Ben Duckett sort of stepped in, it was Shubman Gill that kind of like really got in his grill and started giving him a pop and doing all the rest of it. Yes, all the other Indian players were around, but it was the captain that went there. And that kind of gives license, doesn't it, to the opposition to go, well, okay, well, if the opposition skipper's behaving like that, we're all in. And there are individuals in the Indian side that you go, that absolutely no problem. Jadeja being one, Siraj being another, Bumrah being another. But I'm not 100% convinced that Shubman Gill is the kind of like is the Ian Chappell of Indian cricket. You know what I
mean? That's it for part 1. We'll talk more about the niggle between the two sides in part 2. For this episode's Kia's Movement That Inspires moment, Kia are giving you the chance to attend day 1 of the England-India test at the end of July. Be at the final test of the English summer, where England will look to either make the series 3-2 or 4-1, depending on how it goes at Old Trafford. For your chance to win 4 tickets to the end of this blockbuster series on July 31st, all you need to do is enter by the link in the description. Celebrating the India tour of England, the podcast is proudly partnered with Remitly. We all cheer for every covered drive, every Yorker, every run saved, but every cheer from the stands or from our screens thousands of miles away is more than just support for the team. Every cheer is a cheer for home. What's the team that we play for every single day? That's our family. No matter the distance, they're always with us in every moment of pride, joy, and connection. Maybe that's why millions of people choose Remitly to send money to India. With fast, safe and affordable transfers and great exchange rates with low fees, more of the money you send reaches the people who matter most, because wherever we are, home is in every cheer. Ready to give Remitly a try? Download the Remitly app today and enjoy a special offer. Before we get back to the atmosphere between the two sides, we've got a question from Jamie Mack on the Discord. With the news that Shoaib Bashir will play no further part in the series, what's going to happen? I'm sure we'd all love Dawson, but is Tom Hartley potentially next in line, given that it's on his home ground at Old Trafford? Phil, do you want to go first?
I assume that they'll call Jack Leach back into the side, and that would be the probably the extent of the change. If you are going to play 2 spinners anywhere, then it would be here at Old Trafford. But I don't think they will go that way, and I don't think it will be anything funkier than Jack Leach. Essentially that really. Liam Dawson is the only other obvious answer, and I can't really see them deviating too much from that.
Liam Dawson is the answer.
Yeah, but next. I feel like we're stuck in a kind of Groundhog Day.
Next, I refuse to discuss it. That's it. That's all I got.
Yeah, I was talking to a good county cricketer today actually, who, when I asked him about spinners around the traps, he didn't have to hesitate to tell me who the best one was, and you won't surprise you to hear who it is. And Liam Dawson may get the nod. Look, it would be progressive, although it also feels kind of 5 years out of date. But it would be a very progressive move. It would be good PR, and he is obviously a more complete cricketer than Jack Leach. But I think they see that Jack Leach by a nose is slightly the better left-arm spinner, and that is obviously up for debate, but that's how I think they see it. So I don't expect there to be anything funkier than that.
Yeah, I think that is what they're most likely to do, but I do think it is different to the conversation when we've had it before, just because Liam Dawson is no longer a stranger to this current England setup. They brought him back when they didn't have to, given his age, for the white ball stuff against West Indies, and he went all right, especially in that first game. So he's now a part of the broader England setup, and now that is the case, and I think that looking forward, forget what you think about Dawson versus Leach as left-arm spinners. Their overall county numbers are very similar, but Dawson just gives you options to how you compose a team, and you don't know which bowler is going to be fit. I think it's increasingly unlikely that Chris Wokes plays games on that Ashes tour, so you might fitness depending. Well, yeah, I mean that is certainly looking likely at the moment. So you might have fewer options of guys who could bat 8, and Liam Dawson is someone who bats in the top 6 in county cricket. So he gives you options, even if you think him and Leach are on a par in terms of their level as spinners. He gives them options that I think are worth exploring. But anyway, we have talked about this many times before.
Yeah, that's it. The only thing, I guess, I'm not thinking about the Ashes at all. I have no interest in what goes on beyond the end of this series now. We got an absolute dogfight going on here between two very, very well matched teams. Where the odd hour can swing a test match one way or the other. Awesome. That's it. And then what falls after that? Bash will be fit again and okay for the Ashes, so he'll go. The left arm spin thing in Australia is always a bit of a quandary because of with lots of right handers in the Australian lineup. There's nothing for him to bowl into for 5 days as a left armer. So all of that, but we park that. Let's get this one done. This one's an epic, and it deserves full attention and the best. Just the strongest possible options you can give yourself in the last 2 11s in the series.
Going back to the needle between the two sides, it reached boiling point on that third evening where there was a bit of gamesmanship from Zach Crawley, lengthening the first over of the England second innings as much as possible to ensure that they only faced 1 over that evening. Shubman Gill wasn't happy. He urged Crawley to, in his own words, grow some fucking balls. And that kick-started things for the rest of the game.
To which Crawley said, wind your fucking neck in.
Yes.
So it was all good. It was all good stuff.
But then we even had on day 5, when Washington Sundar came out to bat, Brendan McCullum gesturing to the England team, pointing at Sundar and then saying, give him some chat. You also had Harry Brook sledging the hell out of Nitish Kumar Reddy. They used to be teammates at Sunrisers Hyderabad. Phil, do we like this needle? Did it go too far?
Yes and no, for me. I think there's so much stuff made of this these days. They've been going at each other now for a few weeks. This always happens in a long series, especially with teams that are well matched. And there's none of that sense of slight awkwardness when you're the dominant team, because both teams feel like they're the best teams. There's a lot of strong characters, and the more they get to play against one another, the more these kinds of sort of soap opera elements are going to come out. Does it really amount to that much? No. Is it a bad look for young people to watch? I mean, spare me your piety, really, on that one. Do they genuinely despise one another? No, of course not. They're teammates. They're all very, very rich, very successful young men who play for the same teams for 3 months of the year, and they meet up at Lord's for a ding dong against each other. Mohammed Siraj is perpetually wound up, and we love him for it, and we wouldn't want him any other way. In England are experimenting with being a bit snarly, and I don't have an issue with that. Just like I've never really had an issue with Australia, alphaing the English. We kind of like it on a certain level anyway, on a certain weird psychological level. I don't have an issue with it whatsoever. Apparently Siraj has been fined a bit, 15% or 20% or whatever, for for giving
the Duckett altercation. Yeah,
it doesn't really matter to me. The swirling stuff, perhaps part of the triggers of it are that teams are taking the mick regarding time wasting and sucking too much time out of the game on their own terms, and they're both acting as above the law, spoiled brat type kids, right? And this flows from the umpires to the players and back again, and that's problematic. And I think that exacerbates these flashpoint moments. And there is something more important to talk about here, that the game just suddenly goes to sleep out of nowhere. Today, when Jade just ran off for a piss, or just to eat another over out of that session, so he could regroup at tea, whatever the reasons were. That can't happen with 10 minutes to go before tea. That's a madness. And Paul Rifle is standing halfway between his normal position and the boundary, waiting for him to come back. And he looks like a sort of like a hangdog maths teacher, like counting down the days till the state pension kicks in. It looks he has signed out, and these umpires, they're denuded of any authority now. It's a problem. It's a problem for the game. And umpires used to be able to look you in the eye and say, this is not on, physio, no, I'm not having it. And the players would say, fine, fair enough. But they don't have any authority now at all. And it's because in part of DRS, which was a good thing, but by kind of taking away the authority of their decision-making to help them overall, you diminish them as figures of authority in the end.
But are you saying that there is because this I don't, and I've heard this before, but I don't understand it.
Go on.
Is there some sort of directive whereby the umpires are now not allowed to tap their, I'd say to the players, "Oi, get on with it"? Because I don't think there is. I just think they choose not to. I don't know whether they're trying to be too friendly with them or what. But for Christ's sake, you are the arbiters of time in a game of cricket. And if teams are taking a piss with glove changes and extra drinks breaks 5 minutes before actual drinks breaks was just supposed to last for sort of 3.5 to 4 minutes, absolutely tops that last 7. Who's in charge of this stuff? Who is in charge of this stuff? There are enough reasons for the match to slow down. DRS is one of them because of the time it takes to build predictive elements and all the rest of it. And so we know about this, but there are certain things that are already built in that are stretched and stretched and stretched. They're stretched to the point where it actually doesn't make any difference. You might as well call it a 15-minute drinks break if you like, or if there's going to be a ball change, the umpires will move as slowly as possible to kind of bring them on, or whatever it might be. All of these things can chip away at the idea that there is some sort of rhythm to the game of cricket at times, and they're in charge. Who the hell else is in charge if not them? Who?
Yeah, there's a really interesting discussion. There's a really interesting discussion on Sky before play on Sunday where they talked about this for 20-25 minutes. And I think it's a combination of umpires not trying to hurry things up, but also their diminishing authority. There was a lot of footage of the umpires trying to hurry the players on, and the players just blatantly ignoring them.
That's it.
Mike, I think there's a very obvious solution to this. Do what you do on the final day, and force them to get through 90 overs each day, regardless of the time it finishes.
I could not agree more. I honestly couldn't. But the thing is that finishing at 6:30, right, no matter how many overs left, is a new thing. I played test matches where we walked off at 7:00, and the TV might have stopped. When it was on, it might have been on Channel 4 or whatever. And the TV stopped showing it, but we bowled until the overs were done, because then tactically, you cannot slow the game down to your advantage, knowing that the overs are going to disappear. You have to bowl them. So you either have to bowl somebody you don't want to bowl, or your bowlers have to come back and bowl another spell, which you don't really want them to bowl, but you have to because they're there. That to me is the most obvious answer. Now we will in England go to 7:00 virtually every night, which is not something that I'm going to enjoy when I'm working on the test matches, particularly. They're long enough days as they are. But if that means you get the damn overs in, and if that means the players end up having to bowl more spells than they would have to, and that means that it becomes tactically important for the captains to make sure you get the damn things in by 6:30, or God forbid by 6:00, and it becomes as much part of the game as walking out and taking a guard or marking your run up out. Getting the overs in a certain amount of time becomes a tactical part of the game, and it kills you if you don't manage it. So forget fines, forget any of the other things that kind of really don't make any difference to the match whatsoever. If all you have to do is just get to 6:30 and walk off, then there is no jeopardy for you whatsoever. You can save your bowlers for a fresher spell tomorrow. You can run the clock down if a team is scoring too quickly. You can do whatever the hell you like, because there is no jeopardy for you at all until such a time as those overs have to be bowled.
Yeah, just to get across how many overs were lost. So across the first 2 days, 22 overs were lost over just the first 2 days. And given the speed that these sides bowl, you're basically losing a session of cricket in the first 2 days. And Stuart Broad made a really good point about how fans also should feel shortchanged. If you had a ticket to day one and 83 overs are bowled and Joe Root finishes the day 99 not out, you miss out on a moment you feel entitled to have seen, especially when he gets their first ball the next day. And also you miss out on a really fun passage of play with India with that second new ball, fading light, all that. I mean, a big part of this is the two teams' displeasure with the state of the ball and what has become normal now, where the sides are asking time and time again for the ball to be changed. Do you guys think that there is a problem with the Duke's ball? We have an interview coming up later in the week with the owner of Duke's balls, and he's pretty adamant in saying they're not doing anything differently. But clearly, players think there's an issue here, and it feels like no one's really addressing it.
I mean, it would be bizarre for the techniques that have underpinned how they make cricket balls for many, many years to be suddenly different, or that the materials are weaker. That would just be bizarre, right? That would be inexplicable. What does make some degree of sense for me is a combination of an unusually dry summer, so the pitches are harder, and players are just bashing the ball, right? It's the old West Indian line: go out there and bash the ball. Players are going after these cricket balls. They are playing differently to the way that they used to. Batsmen in England used to caress it through the covers, and now they try and murder the thing. Now, surely that's more relevant than whether the properties of the hide around the edge of the ball or the structural integrity of the cork inside it is somehow different this year to when it was last. I mean, that to me is a madness.
But the thing is, it's been going on for the last 4 years, isn't it? I mean, this is not just this summer. But I get your point. I mean, if you're smashing the thing a lot more often than you've got openers who don't ever leave the ball, then it kind of gets old faster than it might do. But I don't know.
Also, England didn't piss around with their ball this afternoon because they liked it.
Because you couldn't hit it. Perfect. Right. Yeah. In that scenario, you want the damn thing to be like an orange. So yeah, I mean, it's Nas was pretty strong on it and saying that the ball's supposed to get old, mate, and you have to figure out or have bowlers that can. This is where having high quality spinners come in, isn't it? That you have to. There is your thing. But in terms of what to do with it, Duke say they're the same. I don't know. I don't know what you do if that's the case. There's been talk about having a new ball after 60 overs instead of 80 overs and stuff like that, and I don't agree with that. Game's the game. 5 days, yes. 80 overs, new ball, yes. All of those things.
Can I just come in on 70 overs for a new ball and so on? I got quite a lot of sympathy for that idea, for what it's worth. For the reason being that it can feel a bit of a drift at times. And I know this is a part of the game, part of the history of the game, but that 50 to 80 overs all around the world can feel a bit sluggish at times. And bringing it forward by 5 or 10 overs just injects a different kind of action and attitude into that day. And so I wouldn't necessarily be against that as an idea.
No,
and also it can benefit the batting side as well. It's not necessarily just a great
no,
result.
I get that too, but I also think that in England, for example, if we don't have baking hot days and it swings around, or the Duke's ball's still swinging after the 58th over, and then you get a new one after 70. Then you basically say you're kissing goodbye to spin bowling forever and forevermore. There's a problem with it, but I still think there's a relatively straightforward answer. The umpire goes, mate, get on with it. We're not changing it unless the damn thing is so misshapen that we have to. So stop trying and stop wasting everybody's time.
Yeah, I just want to finally on it. I hate the optics of it. I don't care about Siraj and Duckett, whatever, having a muck about. Don't care about that at all. But the sort of disdain that the players now demonstrate for the umpires, I find that unpleasant to watch. When they are actively saying, "Come on, lads, please, this is a bad look for the game," and they don't care. And as Mark says, there's no jeopardy. They're not going to get in trouble, so they carry on. And they will know in their heart of hearts, because as soon as it happens against them, as soon as they are grieved that the other lot are being a bit cheeky with time wasting, then they put the boot in. So they know that it's wrong.
Yeah.
But as long as they're not getting into trouble personally, they carry on doing it. And that's a bad look, right? And that tells you of a game where perhaps the players have become a little bit too cosseted, right? A little bit too, protected, right? And, in the old days, you wouldn't have got it like that. Umpires would have had more control and authority. And it's been eroded over the years to the point now where they're more than bean counters, but they're so much less than figures of authority.
Like with many great test matches, there are lots of brilliant individual performances we barely talked about. Washington Sundar, if India win this test match, you're talking about the way in which he gets through England's middle order on the fourth day when the ball was old and the seamers weren't doing a lot. That could have been the spell of the game. Bumrah was electric on that second morning. Again, England in a good position. Siraj brilliant throughout the game. Again, bowled without a lot of luck at times. Joe Root scored 100. And we've literally not mentioned it. And then KL Rahul scored 100 in his fourth 100 in England. An amazing stat. If you go back over the last 10 years of Test cricket in England, KL Rahul has the most hundreds among openers with 4. Cook and Duckett are next with 3. Then Burns and Crawley with 2 each, and then 12 openers with 1. But why is he so good in England? Because his overall Test record isn't brilliant. It's pretty good. He averages I think he averaged about 35 now. But in England, tour after tour, he's very consistent, and England find it really difficult getting him out. Today, Stokes ends up getting out with a booming inducker.
Yeah, I mean, how much opening has he done other than in England? It seems to me that they always wheel him. They used to back in the day when he was up and down the order like a horse draws, that he would only open when it was England. And everywhere else, he'd find himself at 5 or 6. So I don't know what the numbers are on that. Maybe you can have a look the next time. He's just got fabulous technique against the moving ball. Well, against any type of ball, really. Plays it late, stays sideways on, great balance backwards and forwards, plays the game sideways. It's very, very old school method. And waits for you to bowl it where he wants it, which is, full outside off stump. Peels off the most gorgeous cover drive in existence, and then he'll tuck you away off his pads. And he's not bad on the short ball either. So that's why. I mean, he's just very, very good. And if he spends the rest of his playing days opening the batting for India, he's going to score a hell of a lot more too.
So he's made 2 beautiful hundreds and finished up losing both.
On the losing side, yeah, both times. Yeah, well, Bumrah's taken 2 fifers in the series and has lost twice as well. So. Yeah.
And also just a quick word, Yas, Rishabh Pant's 76 with one hand, and had to be run out in order for him to be toppled. That was remarkable to watch because he's not a show-off, so he wasn't doing that for effect, right? Every time it jarred, he was in clear discomfort, and yet had figured out how to do it. He is a remarkable species. He's on his own, isn't he? He's a remarkable creature. I've never seen anybody even remotely like him. The commentators were good on him, on Rishabh Pant, because they're saying that there is real method behind it. When you actually break it down, it looks chaotic and wild and unhinged, but it ain't. It isn't. He works out where the field is, and then he works out whether to roll on his arse and flick it one-handed over his shoulder, and lo and behold, it tends to go exactly where he needs it to. He's an extraordinary player, and it needed an all-timer from Archer to get him out on day 5. Otherwise, he'd have probably won the game.
Finally, Butch, Joe Root's quite good, isn't he?
Joe Root is good at batting.
Mm.
You heard it here, not first.
That was the gnarliest 100 he's made in a long time, and probably therefore one of the most joyous for him.
Yeah, great. I mean, it just that, we haven't. I suppose you guys would have talked about it through the course of the Test match, but England's batting in that first innings was joyous, really. All of it, led by the brilliance of Root knitting it all together. But you come up in a situation whereby you cannot do all the stuff that you really want to do, and yet you're mature enough and disciplined enough to do what is necessary, and that's what they did first innings, and that's why they won the game. Because had they tried to Bazball it on day one, they'd have got bowled out for 220 in 35 overs or something daft, and the game would have been over yesterday with India winning it. So it was, and it's not thing is, this isn't a sort of, there you go, told you Bazball was all nonsense, because never said that, loved it, absolutely enjoyed it. But the things that have driven us all mad over the course of this is that sometimes you just cannot do it. The game of cricket is not that one-dimensional. Part of being a top team is that you can play lots and lots of different ways. You can understand that sometimes your preferred way is not the way on this particular game. And who knows, they might go bat first at Old Trafford. It might be flat like it was the other night in the Roses match, and they might try and get 600 in a day and a half. But it's great because they can do that. But to prove to themselves they can also make a score that is serviceable and a match winning one. Well, not winning, but you know what I mean. That keeps them in the match in a completely different way. I hope is a wonderful lesson to all of them that this game isn't just a case of sticking our template upon whatever we come up against. Sometimes you have to work around it a little bit and be a bit smarter than that.
Joe Root's 100, by the way, his 37th in Test cricket. Only Tendulkar, Kallis, Ponting and Sangakkara have more. He's now got 13,259 runs at 50.8 in touching distance of the two guys above him in the leading run scorer list. Ponting and Dravid, Kallis and Ponting all within about 100 runs of where he is at the moment. So he might well finish the series only behind Sachin. And with 2 tests to go, very, very possible. That is everything for today's show. Cheers, Butch. Cheers, Phil. We'll be back later in the week with a bonus weekly show, sort of taking in all the other cricket that's been going on at the moment and getting stuck into some of the other questions around the England team at the moment. Finally, a message from Kia. It's time to reserve your place at the unmissable Kia electric experience. Be one of the first to see Kia's groundbreaking new electric vehicles, the sporty Kia EV4, an athletic hatchback with advanced electric power, and the spacious Kia EV5, an SUV with a perfect blend of versatility and performance. Secure your exclusive place today. Search for Kia electric experience. See you next time.